Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I'm here with my March wrap up. I can't believe that it's already April. That's crazy. March was an interesting reading month for me. I had some highs, I had some middle grounds. I don't think I had anything terrible, but I read 12 books, which that's the most books that I've read in any month so far this year. And I thought this was interesting. I read almost all of them because I have a little tracker. I read almost all of them in the latter half of, like, this is the 13th. So I only read 2 books in the first half of March, and then I read a ton, had some DNFs and whatnot, but that's very interesting to me. So the latter half of the month, I was really just pushing through. But let's just get into what I read because I don't want this video to be too long. So the first book that I read, I'm actually not going to talk about at all because I have a whole dedicated reading vlog on it, and that is The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. I chose this as my pick for my Thrill Seeker series, my second episode, and I'll leave that up above down below if you want, but it is spoiler filled. So if you're not interested in that, then I will say that I did give this 3 stars. It was just trying to do too much for me. It was just trying to do way too much, actually, so that's why it was kind of like middle of the road for me. But yeah, if you're interested in that, I do have a whole video up here. Then the second book that I read is Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. This is the 3rd and final installment in the Hot and Hammered series. It was really nice to see kind of where the characters from the first 2 books ended up, so I do love that. It's always fun to see, I guess, in any sort of series. And I did like the characters in this one, Bethany and Wes. We see them a little bit in the second one, Love Her, Lose Her. We kind of see their like banter start, but we really see it through. Obviously in this one it's their dedicated book. And I loved his relationship with his niece Laura. That was adorable. It was so wholesome. I absolutely loved it. But I had some issues. The main thing I didn't like was like the smut and the actual buildup of the relationship. The banter that they have made me extremely uncomfortable. So like before she even showed any interest, and obviously when you're reading this as a romance book, like, you know, like, oh, they're gonna for sure like end up together. Not even a spoiler. You know going into it like, oh, this is so cute because it's like the beginning of their relationship and stuff. So you have those thoughts, but you have to think like in real life, if this was happening, it would be entirely unacceptable because they would be kind of like arguing with each other, and he would talk about fucking her, and it's like, if I have not shown like a man any sort of interest, any sort of honestly indication that I'm into him, if anything, I've shown the opposite, and he comes and talks about fucking me, absolutely not. Like, not at all. Like, I think that we just think when we're reading romance that these sort of things are like acceptable because it's like, oh, well, you know that eventually she's gonna like it. And it's like, how fucked up is that? Like, that is so unacceptable. It's disgusting. And she doesn't reciprocate like at all. Like, there's nothing that would make him think that that's like appropriate behavior. So it's just, it's fucked up. If you put it into a real life situation, it's gross, it's disgusting, and I just couldn't get behind it. Like, I can't support that. So that's mainly what threw me off. And then the smut, Tessa Bailey just really like is like, it's not even that she's dirty, because like it's not that, it's just like her writing style of smut, is not my flavor. It's very I don't know, it's just kind of cringy to me. And I've read smut that I've really liked, so it's not just that, it's just that I don't jive with like her style of smut. Let me make sure that I have room for my little pictures. Next, I read The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Cordova, and this was easily a 4.5 star. This was stunning. I actually have an arc of this somewhere. I'm not gonna go get it. I will put a picture right here because I don't know where it is actually. But I absolutely love this. This was so magical and heartbreaking and heartwarming and heart-wrenching. And this was so lyrical and beautiful, and I loved everything about this. It was witchy and magical, and yet at the same time it was just so, I don't know, just so beautiful. And like, I cried at the end. Like, just absolutely, it's stunning. It did take me a while to get into. I think that's why I gave it like 4.5 stars, because it did take me a while to get into. And this is adult. I know a lot of people were confused about that. I saw on Goodreads a lot of people were thinking it was YA. It isn't that. This is adult. There is some sexual events, some sexual descriptions in here. This is not YA, it is an adult novel. Then I read American Espana Pie by Sapriya Kelkar, and this was so beautiful. This was easily a 5-star read for me. I loved it. This is a cute little middle grade book about this girl, and she tries to hide her like Indianness, I guess. She tries to fit in with like the white kids. She tries to like not call attention to herself in that way. And then this girl moves across the street who is also Indian, and she really loves her ethnicity. She loves her heritage. She really like basks in it and shows it off and is proud of it. And so it kind of teaches the other girl that she needs to be proud of who she is, and she should really I don't know, like be okay with who she is and where she comes from and what her family, you know, the culture and the lifestyle and everything like that. And so it just kind of teaches her what's important and the pride in your own heritage and whatnot. So it was stunning. It's seriously like, oh my god. I'm going to definitely get my hands on a hard copy, and I need to read all of her other work. But I cannot recommend this enough. I feel like it's not super talked about as like a really heartwarming, kind of hard-hitting, honestly, middle grade. There is like some discussion of like xenophobia, violence, racism, obviously, stuff like that, real life situations. So there definitely are some trigger warnings. I would say it definitely is hard-hitting middle grade, but it's stunning, and I think that it really is and could be life-changing for a lot of kids. So definitely pick this up if you have not already and you love middle grade. I thought it was fantastic. Then I read Aquacorn Cove by Kay O'Neill. I loved the Tea Dragon Society books, and so I really was in the mood for just something like lighthearted like that, like something that I could read kind of in one sitting and just kind of bask in, kind of escapism, if you know what I mean. So I picked this one up. I saw that it was on Hoopla. 5 stars. I really, really liked this one. I don't want to say that I liked it more than Tea Dragon Society, but I liked it more than some of the books in that series. I'm trying to think of which one. I think Tea Dragon Tapestry was my favorite, and I think I liked this about equivalent to that. It was beautiful. It had a really great storyline behind it, but then there's always this, like, with any of like Kay O'Neill's books, there's always this magical, mystical, obviously like kind of fantasy element, and I thought it was so cute. I really, really like this one. I have this thing I don't know why. I have this thing with like cleanups. It sounds weird. Like how in this book there's this like storm and then everyone's repairing everything. I love that so much. I don't know why. I love seeing it. I have this like love of repairing old things, or instead of like building new things, like fixing things. I don't know. I have this like weird obsession with it. Like house flips, love. Repairing stuff, love. I guess natural disaster restoration, love. Like I love the idea of the community coming together and like fixing what's been broken. I just love seeing that in real life and reading about it. I don't know. That's fucking weird. But that is a very specific thing that I really, really like. Then, A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. This was a 3-star. There were things that I really, really liked about it and things that I really didn't. So, really basic 3-star. If you are a plot-driven reader, you're gonna hate this, because 99% of the book, let's be fair, 89% of the book, nothing happens. Let's just be honest. Nothing happens. It's character based. It's, oh, we're living this day, and then this day happens, and this is how I feel about it, and this is what's happening with me, and this is what's happening with these people. And it's not specifically super plot heavy. It's not this happens, this happens, this happens. It's just kind of like another day in my life. Like, it's very repetitive for most of the book, I would say. It's very, like I said, it's very slow. It's very repetitive, honestly. It's very character focused. And it is a mystery and thriller. It is. but it's written, it has that Shea Earnshaw twist. It's written very lyrical, magical, like soft and lyrical, I think is the best way to describe it. So it's not very like jam-packed plot intense, kind of like most mystery thrillers. It's very lyrical, slow, interesting in that way. It has a lot of intrigue, definitely. I think because of the writing style, it kept me very, very intrigued. I think had any other author come up with this idea or written this, I don't necessarily think it would have been something that I enjoyed, but I think because it had that lyrical writing, it like kept my attention longer than I anticipated it to with what was actually going on, which was almost nothing. But I was really interested in figuring out what was happening, and I was really interested in figuring out kind of what's going on. And I think it was slow burn, but I think the buildup was perfect, and I did really like that element. It kept my attention. Still was like, oh, that's interesting, like, wow, that's cool. But it wasn't a twist where I was like, holy shit, you know, like there's a difference. I will say if you have the original paperback or hardcover, I think it's actually just the physical copy, the original physical copy in general, you might want to pick up the audiobook instead, or the ebook, because they've already changed it. But apparently in the first printed copies of this book, there's a huge error that gives away the plot twist, like the main plot twist. Definitely pick this up, ebook or audio, because I know that it's fixed in both of those. I listened to the audio, no issues. Ebook, I've read other reviews saying no issues, so just something to keep in mind if you are going to pick it up. And I read King and the Dragonflies by Case and Calendar. This has been on my want to read list since it came out, and I was doing a paint by numbers one day and I just felt like throwing something on, and I chose this one, and it was stunning. I literally listened to the whole thing in one sitting. I just kept like doing my little craft, not even realizing it. I was like, I can't stop, I have to finish, I have to know like what's going on, what's happening. This is so captivating and heartbreaking, and I just I loved everything about this. I did give it 4 stars. I can't remember why. I know that I had a reason, but I didn't write it down. So I don't know. I'll have to think about that, revisit it, and if not, I think I'm definitely going to bump it up to a 5. But I remember there was a reason. But I love this. I'm so happy that kids these days, and adults honestly, who get to go back and kind of maybe heal their inner child a little bit with some of these books and some of these pieces that they didn't have growing up, and just feel that comfort and support. But I'm so glad that kids, like, while they're growing up, developing their cute ass little neurons and whatnot, can read things like this and just see themselves represented, or even if it's reading from a different perspective, getting to see that different perspective, getting to gain the tools that are empathy and sympathy. And I'm just so glad. I'm so happy. It makes me have so much joy for future generations, because growing up, like, I'm white. I saw myself in every book ever. But you know, my queerness definitely was something that was never discussed. I didn't pick up a book in middle school or, you know, even elementary school and see anything about that. And so I just think of that, and I think of kids that never get to see themselves, you know, in any book ever growing up. You know, people my age who growing up only ever saw girls that look like me, or, you know, whatever. So it just makes me so happy. It just makes me so happy. So yeah, I don't remember why this wasn't 5 stars. I know I had a reason, but I need to think on it. Otherwise, definitely it's gonna get bumped up. Next, I Know Who You Are by Alice Feeney. Buddy read this with my sister. Speaking of books that I feel are unrealistic, or that you have to suspend your disbelief in, this is one that I definitely feel like was kind of unrealistic and was definitely far-fetched, but the writing was so fun, and the entire book was so intriguing and so fast-paced and so kind of like, oh my god, it was like a roller coaster of emotions, that I still enjoyed it. So even though typically for me, I'm not a huge fan of unrealistic thrillers or mysteries, I really like it to feel like that could have been like the house next door, the couple next door, you know what I mean? So I like it to kind of be realistic. But sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I read an unrealistic thriller and it's just fun. And Alice Feeney, one of my favorite authors, so her writing style, I really liked this one. It was unrealistic, it was a roller coaster, it was a lot of things I typically don't like, but I think just because it was so fast paced, like I got through this so fast. This was such a quick read. I just feel like it made me actually enjoy the unrealistic elements because I was so on this like ride of like, oh my god, like what the fuck is going on? So I actually did enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. Typically not something I would have thought that I would enjoy, but I did enjoy it. It's definitely fucked up. There are a ton of trigger warnings for this one, so look that up. Then I read The Hidden Witch. I read this because I'm doing a TBR knockout challenge that I found on Storygraph, and one of the prompts was shape-shifting, and at first I was gonna do King and the Dragonflies, but technically that's not shape-shifting. And then I was gonna do The Inheritance of Orchidea Divina because she turns into a tree, but then I was like, that's not really, I mean it is, but it's also not. So I was like, I'll use that one for, because the other prompt was magic, so I used The Inheritance for magic, and then I picked up The Hidden Witch because I know that there's actual like werewolf shape-shifting in it. And I loved The Witch Boy. I think I gave it 4 stars, and I also gave The Hidden Witch 4 stars. So I'm definitely excited. I think there's one more in the series. I forget what it's called, but I'm definitely gonna pick it up. But The Hidden Witch was amazing as well. I gave this 4 stars. It was so intriguing and mysterious, and I'm like obsessed with this like witchy family, and I just love them so much. So highly recommend this one. It's a middle grade graphic novel, witchy spookiness, werewolf shape-shifting, discusses gender roles, also has like deeper elements, which I love always, so highly recommend this one. Then I have Death on the Nile, which I wanted to listen to before I watched the movie that came out. It's my first Agatha Christie, and I was not a fan of this. I listened to it and I think that maybe I would have preferred it physically or on ebook or something, because I think there's just so many characters and so many things to keep track of that audibly it's a little hard to remember everybody's names and connections, and I feel like physically seeing the connections maybe would be a lot better. I also felt like this was really, really predictable. There were so many red herrings and whatnot, but I feel like the mystery was so obvious from the jump, and so again, that made it not super fun, but I was still into it because I really wanted to see what everything was all about. I just feel like with all the red herrings and whatnot, and all the characters, there was so much going on, and yet nothing was happening at the same time. It was super slow, super boring. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm spoiled by like, you know, thrillers nowadays that are just so like fast-paced and twist and turn, and like I just got done talking about I Know Who You Are, which was such a roller coaster of a ride, that then something like this that's like really slow burn and really, really like tons of characters, tons of red herrings, tons of everything, but still really slow. It was too much. It was like too much and too little all at the same time. I just think this writing style and this mystery style is just not for me. Maybe I'm not smart enough. And like I mean that genuinely. Like maybe I'm just like, I can't keep track of all this shit like in my head. Like I can't keep track of all these characters and all their connections to the person who got murdered. Like it's just like a little wild for me. I also actually ended up watching the movie, which you can see either tomorrow or the next day. I should have my what I watched video up, but I also wasn't a big fan of the movie. So I think just the style, this mystery style, I think just isn't for me. But I did love Murder on the Orient Express, the movie. So I don't know, maybe the Death on the Nile just isn't a story for me. I don't know. Should I pick up another Agatha Christie? Should I not? You guys will have to let me know. Then I read Love Boat Taipei by Abigail Hing Wen. This was actually kind of a letdown. I'm not gonna lie. I gave this 3 stars. I expected to like it way more than I thought that I would. It reminded me of like old school YA. Like the writing style, the drama, the characterization, like everything like that, all of it reminded me of like early 2000s YA. Like Sarah Dessen, John Green, peak era. That's what it reminded me of, and I'm just over that. It's what I grew up with, so I definitely feel the nostalgia, but I'm just over it at this point. I think that the conflict resolution didn't make a lot of sense. The plot overall didn't make a ton of sense. Some things were just really like glossed over in regards to conflict resolution, and I don't know, it just wasn't my favorite. But yeah, I'm definitely not going to pick up the second one, which is, I think, Love Boat Reunion, because it centers around a character that I absolutely hated in the first book, Sophie, and it's her like relationship with this guy who I think just deserves way better than her, because I just feel like she has a lot of growing up to do before she tries to get into like a relationship like that. So I don't know, it's hard for me, and that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's really old school YA where there just wasn't a lot of like accountability. But I'm happy that I read it. Like, I'm happy that I saw what it was all about and read it, and I gave it 3 stars. I think it was a good time, but I just expected a little bit more from it, and definitely not going to pick up the sequel just because I'm really uninterested in that character. We'll see though. Then the last book that I read was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. So I read 2 from Alice Feeney this month. This one I had on hold at the library and it finally came in, so that was nice. I did not like this. I haven't actually even written my review yet because I just finished it maybe 2 or 3 days ago. I don't know how I feel about this yet. Even still, I feel like it would be like a 2 or 3 star, which is crazy because Alice Feeney is like one of my favorites. Like, I have read 4 of her books now. I have read all of her backlist, actually, because I've read Sometimes I Lie, I Know Who You Are, His and Hers, and now Rock, Paper, Scissors, and then her new one, Daisy Darker, comes out later this year, I believe. I have read, and I'll probably still pick that one up, obviously, but I have read so many of her books. I consider her a favorite author. I think I gave Sometimes I Lie 3 or 4 stars. I Know Who You Are, I gave 4 stars. His and Hers was 5 stars. But Rock, Paper, Scissors is probably a 2 or 3 star, probably a 2.5. The resolution and the twist and then the resolution both happened so fast, and I felt like they weren't fleshed out enough. And I just needed a little bit more from it. I needed some more grit. I needed some more mystery. I wasn't intrigued by the story. I wasn't as intrigued by the storyline as I have been with her other works. Normally with her, I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like freaking out. What is going on? I need to know. I have all these theories running through my head. And I don't know, I couldn't connect. I couldn't connect to this one. Amelia and Adam as characters, not a huge fan. I don't know, I didn't really care. It didn't leave me with that suspense or that mystery of like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I was just kind of like, oh, whatever. And I think the twist was interesting. I definitely was like, ooh, okay. But like, normally I'm like freaking out, you know? So, I don't know. I know it's been like 2 days or whatever. I still think I need to kind of figure out my thoughts with this one, but I really think it's like a 2.5, which is so disappointing. But I said I wanted this to be short, and then I think it ended up being like even longer than most of my wrap-ups. But yeah, that's everything that I read in March. I feel like that was such a long video, but that's everything that I read. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to see more content from me. And I hope that you all have an amazing reading month in April. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.